Is it recording?
It's recording.
Awesome. Here we are on The Blind Man in Black. I am your host, Brian Snyder. Please like, subscribe, rate. If you don't like it, send it to your enemies. Just send it out in the world. Just do something. I'm really happy and delighted to have a very special person here. She's a producer, an artist, a mother, and so much more, which we're going to learn about. Sheila Cameron, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Brian. Thanks for having me. Thanks for being interested.
Well, I'm interested. I'm very interested. You have a very interesting life. Everything from Hollywood to the mountains and back again, right?
Yeah, it's kind of, sometimes I joke. I feel like sort of like the bizarro Forrest Gump. Like I end up being in the middle of all sorts of things, and then kind of dipping out to the next thing. But yeah.
So have you met presidents and said, I gotta pee?
No, but I've thought it.
So how have you been holding up through COVID, first of all?
Okay.
You don't have to talk about COVID.
No, yeah, but I think it's good because I think we're finally almost the re-entry is a little harder than just sort of white knuckling it through, just kind of holding it together for the whole time. And now feeling like maybe we're rounding the bend on it. I feel like the wheels are coming off a little bit now, where I was sort of hanging on by a thread for a year. I don't know. Does that make sense? It just.
Do you mean your wheels are coming off, or you mean society's wheels?
Both. I think maybe a little bit of both.
Right.
I don't know. How are you feeling about it? I mean, I feel like you and I too, we've been navigating a lot of community crisis mode for a long time, even before COVID.
Yeah. I mean, with climate change and the effects that it's had on our county, Nevada County, has been, drastic. And in terms of the trees becoming a massive fire hazard, excuse me. And, it's scary. I mean, the Washington posted an article on Nevada City being the next paradise. In 2018. So it's scary. Yeah. I mean, my situation, has been odd because I'm in the midst of being in the final stages of losing my eyesight. So that has been like very surreal in itself. And then you add the effects of climate change plus COVID is just like, it seems like it's not real. It seems like my life already seems like a dream. Like I always say this, I feel like I'm in Back to the Future, that scene in the Enchantment Under the Sea dance where Marty McFly is like playing Earth Angel and his parents start dancing and this guy goes, I'm cutting in, McFly. And then he looks at his hand and his hand starts fading away.
Yeah.
That's how I feel all the time. And then you add what's going on with everything else. It's, it feels strange to say the least.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And I've always appreciated that you've always been like a sort of a calm, clear voice through all of the a lot for me. And, and I think I'm a naturally optimistic person, like I'm always like, we can figure it out. And then like, I hold it together for that long until then one day I just wake up and I'm like, what? We're not going to figure that out, and so then, you just have to replenish that optimism somehow. And it's been,
I think there's always a place for hope.
Sure.
I mean, you have to get through this life. I feel you have to have hope. I know some people are like, oh, fuck hope or whatever, but I couldn't get through my days without some sense of, feeling some hope for the future, especially having a stepson and a wife and, keeping it together for them.
Hope is the braver path for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been trying to like distill things down a little bit, and I don't know if you saw in my Facebook post about my epiphany, but one of the things I was kind of worried about, I'm like, how can I be a father? I'm blind, and like, what can I show him? And I'm like, I had this kind of epiphany. All I really need to do is just infuse love into everything I do, and if I can keep it that simple, um, I know that's what my son needs, you know.
100%.
and
100%.
uh and it it took a lot of pain to get there, but that's what's giving me hope, is that if I can do that, a lot of the other shit doesn't matter, and it keeps a little more simple. So
Yeah.
but enough about
Okay.
me.
Sorry.
How about you? How did it all start?
How
What
did
is
it
the
all start?
genesis for
Oh my
Sheila Cameron?
God.
Where are you from?
I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
And then I moved to Pennsylvania. I went to school, high school there. And then I went to college in Baltimore. And then I moved to
Okay.
LA. I lived in LA for about 18 years or so. And then I had two
Okay.
kids.
Let's
I
pause a
moved up
little
here.
bit.
Okay.
You're going really
I'm
fast.
sorry. I know. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot.
What was your childhood like? What were your parents like? What do they do?
Oh, okay. So I have three sisters. So we were the four McLaughlin sisters, Irish Catholic family that lived in a big white house on a hill. My dad was a corporate lawyer, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom who was an art teacher. And
Mhm.
we were kind of very, very Catholic, but also very intellectual and artsy and kind of, I guess, rebellious in I was more rebellious, I think, probably in my own way. And
You married a punk rocker,
I did. Yeah.
but
And it
we'll
was
get into that.
funny. Okay. Yeah. That was the whole thing. But that actually started in Cleveland too. He was on tour. I saw his band when I was 13 and he was 18, and I didn't even know it. And then we
Really?
met later in LA. Yeah.
That's mystical.
Yeah, totally. I always say if like somebody had tapped me on the shoulder when I was 13 and
Mhm.
like, see that drummer there, you're going to meet him in Los Angeles and marry him and have two kids, I'd be like, wow.
Do you remember seeing him play? Like, were you like,
No.
okay. Was he disappointed by that?
No, I don't
Okay.
think. I mean, it was one of those, I that punk rock scene too. I think it all it all seems like more exciting in hindsight. I mean, it was exciting, but it was also pretty grubby. You're just in a bar, and the kids, they're just kids sleeping in a van, driving around the country, barely getting paid. And
Right.
yeah.
So how did your parents, I mean, I'm assuming that you were kind of punk rock, at least outside of the house.
Yeah. Yeah. And in the house, they were cool with it. I mean, was, I was one of those kids. I mean, I got into enough trouble, but like, I got decent grades, and, I
Was there
wasn't,
pressure,
was there pressure to get good
like
grades
to
and be,
become a lawyer or something like that?
no,
No.
no, I don't think so. I think, I mean, I was always very, very artistic, and I would write a lot and was very creative. And I think maybe the community we lived in there was just sort of like, that's naturally like where you go to school, and then you go to college, and then you grow up, and then you get a job. It was like very much that Ohio Midwest,
Mhm.
upper middle class, it's just what you do. And but my dad was super smart, really. My mom's is super smart. Nobody spoke down to us as kids. We would have rigorous and robust conversations about all sorts of things, and art and music and politics and everything. Yeah.
So how did your desire to create art begin?
Hmm. I have a very complicated relationship with art. I never it was always one of those things that I just always did. And many times I felt resistant to it, where I felt like it's just what I do, but then what am I really going to do? Like, that's just like a thing I do. But I also have a lot of, I'm not like one of those artists who's like, oh, I hate people. I just want to be alone and paint until I, pass away. And, like I like big projects. I like putting on shows. I acted a lot when I was little. I did a ton of plays. So I like being bossy and in charge of things, so being alone and being in a studio and then just sort of struggling with my work, that didn't feel like the art, like it sounds so like that art lifestyle. It was never a romantic lifestyle for me. And so when I went to school, I went to like a Catholic liberal arts college that, was fine. I had considered art school minimally, but just even looking at getting the portfolio together and how sort of pretentious and it just felt like that didn't feel like the path I wanted to go. So I became a writing major, and then I just kept taking art classes as an elective. And then I was like, well, I guess I do have now I have an art major too. So then I just had a double. So I got a BA in fine art and in creative writing. And it was that thing of like, darn it, art, you win again. Like I keep going back to it. I guess that's what I'm saying. I keep going back to it.
Keeps you pulling you back like the mafia.
It does.
So how was the college experience?
It's a little weird. I mean, I think maybe I was ready to be done with school, like maybe 2 years into school, but I just like kept my note, like, like just partied the, freshman and sophomore year, and then junior year, everything felt kind of, and then I was like, oh, senior year, I finally got it together. It was like, boy, I could really learn some interesting things here.
Right.
And then it was just time to go. I was just ready to go. I was ready to be my sister when I was a sophomore. My sisters, my 2 older sisters had moved to LA. And
what did they go there for?
So Maura, who's the second older from me, she went out to be a writer, and she worked in a couple different places, and then she became Kevin Costner's personal assistant while I was in college. And so when I would have spring break, I would like go visit her on the set of The Bodyguard in Miami. Kevin was lovely to me and my family, and it was but like the Hollywood trip, man, it's unless you've been in it, like you can't. I mean, talk about feeling like a dream, right? It just felt often unreal for many years.
Was that the first celebrity you met?
Maybe. I mean, I guess the first celebrity that I could say I know, like if we saw each other, he'd be like, hey, and I'd be like, hey,
Yeah.
So I probably have met other celebrities before then, but that was like, and that was right after Dances with Wolves. So like,
so he was at the top of his game.
I mean, it was beyond, that sort of star pinnacle wild ride to watch that going on. But yeah, when you're in college and you're just like going back to your dorm after you just like met Whitney Houston and borrowed Kevin Costner's car, you're like, well, I want to go there and do that. That was fun.
So your one sister was an assistant to Kevin Costner, and is she still his assistant?
No. Okay. She did that for some years, and then the whole time she was a screenwriter as well. And so then she moved and she sold some screenplays and was a writer. And then when I moved here, she moved here like a year after I moved here. So she lives in Grass Valley now. And my other sister
all
was
following each other.
Yeah, my other sister was she was in casting for a while, but then she became a producer, and she's producer partners with Philip Noyce on a bunch of projects, you know, a big action director. So she like unpacks these big, complicated action scripts, and
right.
She's super smart and cool. And
wow. So you're all in the industry. That's amazing.
Except for my younger sister. Yeah. She never got the bug.
Oh, okay. What is she doing?
She's in Pittsburgh, and she was doing some environmental work, and she had some health issues. So she's just getting her legs back underneath her.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I hope she recovers.
Yeah. She's doing a lot better for sure.
Good. So you went straight from college to LA?
Mm-hmm. I think maybe I took 6 months, and I worked at Borders Books to like save a little bit of money. The one in
Ventura?
Pittsburgh. No, in Pittsburgh. I went, so I had to go back, squirrel some money away, move to LA, and I moved to LA the week before the Northridge earthquake.
Perfect timing.
I know. And then
what is that, 91?
94. So it was like,
okay.
And I was living with my older sister, she said I could stay with her in North Hollywood. And so I was there for about a week, and then I was homeless.
Oh no.
So I was like, I got the full LA experience. So then we all had to find an apartment together, and it was a good life lesson though, for sure.
Wow. So were you were literally homeless? Were you like couch surfing or? Yeah,
my other sister was on location. So we were kind of camped out in her place for a little while. I mean, you know, we weren't in like crisis, but there was a lot of upheaval, and there was no place for us to go.
Right.
So, but we worked it out.
So where did you start working when you landed in LA?
My first job was at a place called Academy Entertainment, and they did direct to video, mostly films. And they did a few theatrical releases, but I learned so much. I was the assistant in the legal and acquisitions department. And so I would just take stacks and stacks and stacks of videos to assess to see if we should acquire them, and then look over, you know, help with like the cover letters and all the paperwork of securing those agreements and getting them distributed on video.
But before we go any further, was there a specific desire that took you to LA? What did you want to become, an actor or a director, or what?
I thought I was going to be a writer. Okay. I was in a pretty cool program in my school for a writing program, and it was sort of it fancied itself as like a kind of a feeder program to, like, you know, Iowa and Syracuse, you know, like all the writerly places that you would get your master's. And again, that just felt like, oh God, I don't want to sit I don't want to sit in a cornfield and write like that. I want to go write some stories and do some things. And that was hard because my mentors and my professors were really poo-poo. They thought I was selling out going to LA. But I wanted to go to LA. That was fun. So,
right.
I went thinking I was going to be a writer. Quickly saw like what it would take to be a writer, which would require like a lot of alone time and a lot of humility. And I didn't have much of either of that, you know, so I liked working with people to make something happen, and then getting in a fight about things, and sometimes winning and sometimes losing, and just charging ahead. So I realized quickly that I would be a better producer than a writer, probably. But because I have a writing background, I can talk to writers. Right.
So you worked at that one place in the legal department. And then where did you go from there?
Then I went to go work for Mick Jagger's film company.
Okay.
Yeah, that was cool. He had a deal with Steve.
How did you get into that?
My sister's boss, her best friend was running Mick Jagger's film company and needed a new assistant. And I just went and interviewed and got the job.
So it is a kind of, in a sense, who you know.
100%, especially with like assistant jobs.
Right.
I mean, people, you know how the Hollywood assistants are, like you're working in an office, but people will hand their entire lives over to you, know, so they need to feel like they know somebody who's connected to you.
Rachel, by the way, she says that she wanted to tell you that she loves you. That's my wife.
I love her.
And for those listening and watching, and she worked at a place called Cinetel.
Yes.
And she did some of that personal assistant type stuff where like the head of the place like wanted like always to have like 7 like green M&Ms like available. Did you have to do that kind of stuff?
I didn't have to do that I was very lucky, and I was people know like who the crazy people are in, that world. And so I knew that there were certain jobs I would never go for. So I had very nice bosses, crazy situations, but like the people who were actually my bosses were never totally outrageous. But there were some things where you're just like, really, like, having to like fax an entire script to Mick at like on his private island at midnight, and you're just like,
yeah, that's a little much.
Yeah.
So how was Mick?
We didn't have a lot of interaction. He was on tour at the time. And so, and this was like just towards the beginning of the internet. I would always mess up what time it was. And I still will remember like calling him thinking it was like, because they were all over the world and I could never keep track. And I would have the book, the tour book, and I would try to do the math and I would always get it wrong. And I just remember one time, like the third time, he's like, Sheila, it's 4 in the morning. Yelling at, and I was just like,
Why did he pick up the phone?
I mean, it was, I called him in his hotel room. Like
Right. So he thought it was urgent.
Who knows what he thought, but he was like,
a rock and roll
what
emergency.
Are you doing calling me? Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, we didn't hang out too much at all, ever.
Okay.
Just a couple of phone conversations here and there.
Right. No wild stories? Okay. All right.
No,
so
nothing that juicy. We did see, is that Young Frankenstein behind you?
Oh
my God, what's his name? No,
Mel Brooks.
Pardon?
Mel Brooks, Gene Wilder.
Frankenstein.
Oh, Peter Boyle.
Peter Boyle.
Yeah.
I did sit next to Peter Boyle at a Rolling Stones concert.
Oh, really?
Bus. Yeah. So he was behind us, and that was fun.
Oh,
on the
wow.
bus. They were into it. So that's my only exciting Mick Jagger story.
Okay.
It has to do with Peter Boyle, and I forgot Peter Boyle's
I would not picture Peter Boyle at a Rolling Stones concert.
He was very quiet.
Right. He was just
Yeah.
So what happened? Where did you go from Mick Jagger's company?
Then I went to HBO, and
straight to HBO. All green lights for you.
Yeah. I mean, not
your
really.
Your life is an unbroken series of green lights.
Oh my God! But it was all like I was still an assistant, still doing the crazy hours with like not great pay and just the grind. But HBO was a little bit better on pay because it was like a big conglomerate. But I was an assistant for a woman named Jenno Topping, who's a big fancy producer now. And we were in the original films department. So we were doing
now what year was this?
God, 98, maybe.
So we're talking the beginning of The Sopranos, Curb Your
Yeah.
Enthusiasm.
This was a little earlier, and that was the original series, and those were mostly, a lot of those are out of New York. We were the original film, so it was like, what did we do? Like The Late Shift and Rasputin, Gia, Breastman.
No, Rasputin was Alan Rickman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was somebody great when he would call. Hello. Like his voice.
Yeah. Intense.
Yeah.
Yeah. We lost him too early. He's so talented.
So yeah. And lovely. He was very gracious. I definitely, you remember who treats assistants well, for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
I could see that. Yeah. Yeah, that's so. What happened there? So you worked on some of those films. Did you work on Gia?
No, but my one of my dearest friends there, Matt, that was his project, and Jeno eventually left. She started a company with Betty Thomas, who did like Dr. Dolittle, and her big breakthrough was the Brady Bunch movie. And then she did The Late Shift at HBO. And then she and Jeno left and started their own company. And they did the Howard Stern movie and,
Private Parts. Okay.
Yep. And so when Jeno left, she said, you can come with me and be my assistant. Or HBO said you could stay and you could be a creative executive. And so I was like, I'll stay and I'll take what's behind door number 2.
Right.
And
what made you make that decision?
I think I remember actually tearing up to my boss and feeling, I was just like, I can't fill out one more FedEx thing. Like, I just can't, it wasn't like nothing was bad. I just didn't want to, and it would be a lot of location work, really growing hours and really it would be a grind. Yeah. There were times where I maybe regretted it because it felt like the person who did become her assistant had a more solid trajectory. Because when I stayed at HBO, talk about like flying too close to the sun or something. Like they made me a creative executive and I didn't have a VP to report to. So the senior VP took me under his wing, and I brought in a couple projects that got a lot of buzz, but had some controversy around them. And so, when some of the higher ups got taken out, I didn't have anybody to protect me. So I got swiped out with the rest of the higher ups because I was like, I don't know. I wasn't in a good position politically. Let's put it that way for corporate media, but I learned a lot for sure.
What did you learn?
Well, some of the old tried and true, it's not show friends, it's show business.
Right.
That really, I think that was where I first started to realize that having projects fall apart could break my heart, and that I was actually more sensitive than I thought I was. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I needed to learn that I didn't have that killer instinct, that I could just be really upset and devastated if I believe in something and I want to do something and I think it's going to be amazing and it doesn't work out, or gets taken away from me, or it gets stolen away from me, then that's going to be hard. That's going to be hard for me to take. So I gotta either steel myself the next time or protect myself better, or I don't know.
It's interesting you mentioned stealing because it seems like it's very common. And I had a friend who was essentially the creator of My Name is Earl. And he had to go to court for that. And the judge was like, you have a good case here, but it's the jury, the jury is going to, if there's anybody who's famous, they're going to side with that person. And, you know, and then you can literally look at two scripts side by side, and they almost look exactly the same, and still, you know.
Yeah, there was a guy we used to do, and yeah, God, you know, one of the guys who worked there, one of the bosses, he was brutal. Oh my God, this wasn't somebody I was an assistant for, but he was like the big boss, and he would just, just lose his temper and just scream the craziest things to everybody in big meetings, you know, all the executives. And we would do this thing called like our weekend reads. And you'd have to like file your report of like what you read over the weekend. And then you'd have a meeting of like what you read. And then you'd say, you know, like, this seems good, or I'm going to check, you know, see what this and blah, or read nothing, it was terrible, whatever. And before the big weekend read meeting, it would go in order of rank, right? And so this other person, nobody liked to be yelled at by the big boss. So this other person.
Who does?
No, and he would humiliate you too. It would just be awful.
Yeah.
And this other person, we were just like sort of, you know, shooting the shit before the meeting, and he said, you know, did you read anything good over the weekend? And I said, yeah, you know, I actually read this thing. It was like pretty fascinating. And I kind of told him, he's like, wow, that sounds amazing. So it was his turn to go before me, and he pitched my thing.
Oh no!
Right in front of my face, and I was just like,
Did he look at you while he was doing it?
Like even, and then I even talked to a friend of mine a couple of years ago, and the guy still laughs at that. Like, oh, she was so pissed at me.
Yeah.
And then it ended up, the movie actually got made. It was, what was the name of the guy who was accused of the Olympic bombing in Georgia, in Atlanta?
Okay.
Richard Jewell, I think it was. So it was like an in-depth, maybe it was Texas Monthly or Vanity Fair. It was a big article about like what a hot mess that situation was. And I think Clint Eastwood made it into a movie a couple of years ago. So then that's always weird when you see projects that like you worked on at HBO and they got put in turnaround and they got put here and put there. And then you're like, hey, I know that project. I know that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a brutal business.
It is. It really is. It's so brutal, but
cruel.
So fun too. I can't say I did not have fun.
Right.
A lot.
Right. So what happened? I mean, you stayed at HBO for quite a while, right?
No. Okay. So I didn't stay that long. I mean, I don't know, like, I guess long in Hollywood years, maybe 3 years, 2 years, something like that. And then I got, you know, like 4 people, just like the executive bunch got furloughed basically, with like new people coming in. And my boyfriend at the time was working on Sex and the City, the first season. And he was like, I got to go to New York. And I'm like, well, I'll go to New York. And so I went to New York with him for a year. And I just worked as a temp in an investment bank. Cause I was just like, I just had gotten so beat up by everything. And I was like, I don't know if I even want to be in this business. And it's just going to hurt my soul too much. And I'll just go live in New York for a little while and just kind of regroup. But you know how it is. They suck you back in. So
yeah,
I came back and I did some headhunt. I worked as a headhunter for a little while to like actually get famous people assistants and executives doing like executive. And this was like the first .com boom. So I did that, but then I eventually got recruited by one of the companies that we were working with. And I worked for, you know, remember Movie Line magazine? Yeah. So I launched the movieline.com site and the Young Hollywood Awards. And so then I was on the other side of that, like entertainment journalism piece. And that was interesting. And then from there, I went to go work for Matt and Ben.
How did you feel about that?
That was super fun because you know, when I was in college, I had always worked in the computer science department. Like that was my job. And we were one of the first we were like a pilot project. Our university was a pilot project for getting totally wired broadband, to have cable, internet, everything all together in one bundle. And so I would be around all these IT guys all the time at like the very beginning of the internet. And I was like, this means something. This is going to do something to storytelling and how we communicate and art, and like just as a cultural phenomenon.
Right. And you were absolutely correct.
It was very exciting. It was very exciting. And so then starting to work on projects with entertainment people at the beginning of that, trying to decipher like what it all means and how we can use these tools and how are we going to get these sort of creative bully types to work nicely with these kind of quirky IT types. And, everybody kind of has their own cultural norms. And so I just loved it more from a technology standpoint, less from like because
you were seeing where it was going.
Well, it's just exciting to be making things up as you're going along. Nobody could say like, well, this is how you do it and this is how it's done, and you just, let's just figure it out. Just jump in. And it was cool. Yeah.
Now you kind of glossed over, you just threw that in there, Matt and Ben.
Yeah. So then I worked for this company that did Movie Line, and then Matt and Ben were starting a company called Live Planet.
Okay.
And my boss over at HBO, Jeno, her partner he produced Good Will Hunting with Matt and Ben. And so I knew them like before, when they were just like young actors, they'd be like, oh, your friends should come over and meet my friends. They're cute. You'll like them. Like they were like those guys. And then to watch their star just go, But Good Will Hunting had been around town forever. Like it just, everybody knew that script and everybody loved the script. And there was just some kind of whatever magic special sauce that just kind of made it line up and take off. So they started a company where they got, investment banker, big fancy money to do a company where it would be every entity would have a traditional media component, a real world call to action, and a new media or technology piece. And you would launch the entity across all of these channels at the same time and pre-sell the sponsorships. So it was very experimental. We would have to go and sort of pre-sell ideas to sponsors, like basically ask money, just kind of trust us. Like, we're going to make something cool. Just trust us.
Right.
And so I went to work for them, and I was in charge of Project Greenlight.
Now, how did you meet them? I'm sorry. Did I miss that?
Yeah, Matt and Ben. I knew Matt and Ben before they were even really famous. And then they started this company with Chris, who is my boss from HBO, the one who went to go start the company with Betty Thomas, and I didn't go work with her.
Wait a minute. How did you know them before, though? Were you living in Boston or something? Or
no, it was because they were just these kids who, not kids. They were my age. Chris was married to was a boyfriend of my boss. And he was always trying to get this project made with these two actor guys. You know what I mean? It was just kind of, they had some projects before Good Will Hunting. Matt was in a couple things. I don't think Ben had really done much.
He was in, was he in Clerks 2 or something before that?
Matt was in maybe they were both in like
Ben was in Clerks too.
Yeah, and Young Poets Society, maybe.
Yeah.
I can't remember. But they were, they were just like, they weren't Matt and Ben. They were Matt and Ben. So I had known them for, not like good friends, but just sort of, we were in the same kind of sphere a little bit professionally for a little while. And so then when they became fancy and then wanted to start this company, and then they had, a bunch of like more like Harvard fancy people there. But then they they also needed people who like really understood how to like make a website from the ground up, and how to make a movie from the ground up, and how to work with HBO and deal with people like Harvey, and just the whole, you had to
When you say
navigate a
Harvey,
lot
you're
of,
talking about Harvey Weinstein?
yeah, but just navigate those waters. I guess that's what I'm saying. Like me and
Can I
Harvey would
ask
like hang
if you had
out.
a Harvey Weinstein, have you have a story or no?
Nothing. I mean, it was so, when all of that stuff broke, it was
Mhm.
so like, that's how,
Everybody
yeah, well,
knew it.
that's how broken Hollywood makes you.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't even know it was like a thing. I was like, well, yeah, that's hard. Like, yeah, he's, the worst.
I had I think it was like 2005 or six. I had a friend who was a comedian, and he was really pissed off at Louis C.K. And I'm like, what's your and I didn't really ask.
Yeah.
I'm like, why do you have an issue with Louis C.K.? Like what? Like he's and I didn't understand. And then like and then like a year before the news came out about him,
Mm-hmm.
I asked him, I'm like, why did you have an issue with Louis C.K.? And he told me exactly the same story that a friend of his, a girl that he had dated, had a
Mm-hmm.
situation with Louis, and yeah, so I mean,
Yeah. And I think the whole culture of outrageousness, like it puts good people off kilter to not even know, like, when people are being willing participants in things that feel wrong and abusive, and like what's your business and what's not your business, and what do you call out and what don't you call out. Like it was such a upside down circus that like you couldn't get your bearings. So
yeah.
um and I think, if anything, a lot of that work that I did, going back with women. So then, like, when all of that this is again my like Forrest Gump story, where then I got hired to go back to LA to work on women in media initiatives and training, and really unpacking. The harder part was looking at my own complicity in things that, you know, you just normalize it because you're so immersed in it. You can't even see where you end and the toxicity begins. You're just kind of doing it.
How did you kind of reconcile the complicity?
Mm, I think it's probably just, you gotta forgive yourself, where it's like, when you know better, you do better, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I guess it allows me to have a lot of compassion for some of the men who didn't understand what was actually going on, and there were things that I think probably really hurt me that I didn't even realize how much it was. Like I basically had to like unravel the whole sweater and knit it back together again, and look at the totality of my career and the choices there, and the things that worked out and didn't work out, and the things I walked away from because it felt too hard, where I would turn it on me that I wasn't strong enough, instead of looking at it like, well, maybe it was like actually, pure poison, and there was no way for you to be able to move forward in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, I don't know, we could talk about that for hours, but yeah, no, I never had like a Harvey attack you
No
situation.
incident with a plant?
No incident with a plant, although he did steal my table at Sundance. I'll never forgive him for that.
What did he use it for?
I just, I don't know if you've ever been to Sundance, but like
I
every
have not.
reservation for like every reservation down to like the 15 minutes is taken at like every dump in town, or whatever moderately nice place. And so you have to start making reservations like weeks in advance. I mean, I don't know if it's different now, but back in the old days when I was in Hollywood. And so I went for my reservation, and they were like, sorry, your table has been taken. I was like, what? And I was like indignant. And then I see him sitting at my table. I was like, oh.
Was he like smiling at your table?
No,
Like,
he didn't
hi.
even. I mean, he doesn't.
Yeah.
He probably didn't even know he took someone's
Oh,
table.
okay. Okay.
That's he just
Right.
gets what
Right.
he wants. Yeah.
Well, if that's the worst you walked away with Harvey Weinstein, that's not bad.
I will take the win. And there
Yeah.
would be times, where you just have to, I'd be on calls with him and he would be really losing his temper, but that was a couple of times. But, that
Right.
type of person was definitely running amok for sure.
Right. So where did you go with Ben and Matt?
So I did Project Greenlight. I co-produced the HBO show, and then I did the website, and then ran the contest. And I would get these fights with everybody because like nobody was paying attention to the message boards. They always thought that was like I'm like, listen, I'm like, we have one guy who wins this contest, and he gets to make his movie, and then HBO does a documentary about this guy making his movie. I'm like, but we've got these 7,000 writers who are on a message board, and it is like alive. Like the future of entertainment is how people are talking to each other, and they're just like,
Right.
and I was like, there's something here. There's something to this, you guys.
Right.
So anyway, then 9/11 happened, and all of that experimental advertising, stuff just disappeared. So I mean, I think the company went from like 60 people to like 10, like in a day. It was just devastating. I lost somebody I knew there, and we lost one of our investors on the plane, and it just felt like everything was just.
That's horrible.
Yeah. And so I lost my job and my bearings, and I was just like, oh my God, I can't keep doing this. I loved Project Greenlight so much. I loved it. It was like the last thing I could love in Hollywood. And then finally I was like, you win, you broke me. I'll go work at a store. I don't care.
Wow. What an intense ride. So what happened after 9/11?
Then
I mean, we kind of know what happened after 9/11, but I mean, what happened after? What with you?
I think we all know. I mean, I was just like super depressed, and I was like that age where I was like, what am I doing, and why? Like, who are these people, and what is happening? And I gotta figure out like what kind of life I want to live. Like what am I doing? It was one of those kind of years. And then that's when I started. It was the beginning of when people started first dating online. And then I met my husband online.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering what website it was, because I'm trying to think what year was that?
Do you remember Nerve?
No.
Yeah, it was 2002 maybe.
Okay.
Anyway.
So that was early website dating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I had met so many people through Project Greenlight. Like that was the other thing where people were organizing and connecting and forming incredibly deep relationships and friendships. I mean, some of the people who I still call friends now, like some of my dearest online friends that have been with me longer than my husband, are from Project Greenlight, which is like wild. And I feel like we've been through things together.
What was your most fulfilling experience at Project Greenlight? Something that you're really proud of and
Oh God, I don't know. I really don't know.
You can be general though, if there is something. Yeah.
I think, my boss, Chris, he's really tough. He was a really tough boss, and he would scare people. But I felt like he and I had a very good, I don't know, rapport. I don't know. I wouldn't say like Project Greenlight. I mean, I was proud of, I guess I was just proud that I hung in there. That got me on.
Endurance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So, so you met your husband online. Well, now your current husband.
Yeah.
And so how did that all come about? I mean, like, what was that like in the beginning?
We met, and we just have never been apart since like the day we met. It really
So
was
when
just
he
that,
told you
like
that he was in his band, were you like blown away?
Yeah. I was like, what? I mean, because I didn't really remember his band being there, but it was on the Black Flag tour. And I'm like, I saw Black Flag then. And he was like, well, my band was on that tour with them. And I was like, what? But we have a ton in common, and but just enough that's not in common to keep things interesting. And he's super smart and kind, and I was just like, okay, don't blow it. He's nice man.
So how long have you been married now?
Oh my God. Like 17 years? No. God, is that right? Yeah. 16 years? 16 or 17 years? Yeah.
Congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
So could you tell about what you feel is the key to longevity and keeping a marriage going for you?
I think for me, it was before we got married.
I'm asking because I need to know.
Okay, I will tell you. This was the thing.
I'm coming on 2 years.
Before we got married, I made sure that he would be somebody who I could divorce, that I would trust enough to divorce.
So what do you mean by that?
That I said, listen, I love you enough, and I hope you love me enough, that if at some point you are not happy, or I am not happy, or this is not working out, we can figure out a way to like unring this bell and still feel whole and have some respect for each other. And so I think in a weird way, having that conversation about how every day you do have an out, like you always have an out. You can always make that choice to say that this is not what I want to do. Then it forces you to choose it every day, even on the bad days.
I have not heard it that way.
Well, wow. That's what I think about. Because I would never want to marry or have kids with anybody that like I couldn't trust enough to tell me if they were miserable or let me go if I was miserable without destroying each other. And I don't think Greg would do that to me. I wouldn't do that to him.
I see what you're saying. It's like the saying, if you really love someone, set them free.
Yeah. And also like, I mean, what is it? The days are long.
Don't really.
The days are long, the years are short, or something like that. It just, it feels like, it's hard to be a person. It's hard to be a person. So. Yeah.
I feel that way. I can relate as a person. So, wow. So it's basically every day you wake up and say to him, I'm going to keep doing this.
I mean, not every. No, yeah. No, but just feeling like, I think that's where I start bucking, is if I feel trapped. So if I just take a deep breath and I'm like, nobody's trapped here. Everybody has choices. Everybody can do what they need to do. I just like calm down and let's just.
Yeah, I think about it theoretically, but then loss is a huge theme in my life. So when I think about loss, it's really intense. It's like, oh, another thing I'm going to fucking lose, So, loss is, I know, I mean, from like, I don't know, a spiritual or Buddhist perspective or something like that, everything is impermanent,
Yeah.
You don't be attached to anything. And I mean, I get that theoretically, but I don't think you can live without having some. I mean, that's what loss is. It's an attachment. If you didn't care for it, or then it wouldn't matter if you
Totally.
lost it, you know? So
I don't think I could. I'm not a very good Buddhist. Also, I'll say that. Like, yeah.
do you still practice Catholicism?
No,
Okay.
I barely did before.
Right.
Yeah, I would.
Do you have a spiritual practice at all?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No, I don't. It's funny because a lot of times people talk about my paintings and really infuse it with spirituality, and that's fine. You know, like that's amazing. I love it if that's what you're getting from it. You know, but that's not. I'm not spiritual.
I hear you.
Which is
so what
which
gives
is not to be offensive. You know, I don't want to be offensive, but that's just not like what.
Yeah. No. I hear you. I hear you. But if you're not spiritual, we talked a little bit before we started about hope and stuff. What keeps you going forward? What gives you hope?
Ooh, I think God damn it. Like I might be like a humanist, or I might have a more cerebral belief in that people want to survive and that we survive better by doing better, and that there is a higher intellectual mechanism that keeps all the gears turning, and that if you can get into that system and not muck up the works, you're gonna have a better life. Like I always feel like it's so easy for people who are spiritual or religious to do all sorts of horrible things and then say I'm sorry and go to confession and do, like, they have all these like rituals to sort of cleanse them of their whatever. But if you don't believe in any of that, then you just have to believe there's a reason why you're on this planet, and while you're here, and take care of other people while you're here, because there's something that's bigger than you that's going to make things better for everyone.
Right.
Like just science.
Did you say science?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like it just, you know what I mean? Like we all like rise and fail together, really.
Yeah. That's for sure.
I can't. But I do not begrudge anybody that finds spiritual practice a better organizing feature. Right.
So I want to hear a little bit about your art, but I also want to know how you came to Nevada County.
So after I had a couple of kids,
and how was that? Let's not gloss over that. How did that change?
Hey, well, I also had oh my God, I went to go work for a big magazine publishing company, and I got hit on the head with a lighting rig, and I had a brain injury. Like,
what?
I know, it's a whole
thing. You
have
a TBI?
It wasn't, it was a mild, it was mild TBI.
Okay.
But that kind of like that again, that was like another one of those things of like where it just really rocked me to my core, because I thought I was so sharp, you know, and then all of a sudden I was not sharp.
Wait a minute. So what struck your head?
A lighting rig.
Oh, no.
Yeah, at a convention.
So heavy. Was it one of the lights itself, or
it was
the whole?
Weird, you know, because it felt super heavy and it felt terrible. And I went to the hospital and it was like awful. And then like, as we're like trying to get through all the insurance and stuff, they were like, it was only so and so pound. Like, I remember they said the number of pounds or whatever. And I was like, it felt a lot heavier than that. And I don't know. I'm not saying anybody was lying, but I don't know. Anyway, it all worked out.
I know I've dealt with lighting equipment. It's heavy shit. I mean, if you just to light the housing and everything itself is pretty heavy, and the height, you have to keep the height.
It was on a T stand, you know, and it was kind of, anyway. So that happened right when I was first starting to date Greg. And so then that was like very humbling, because it was like, oh my God, like I'm used to being like, don't worry about me, you know, like I'm good. And then all of a sudden I just felt like completely not good. And then anyway, we worked it out, and then we got married, and I had 2 kids, and they are a little tiny baby and a 2-year-old, and we're in West Hollywood, and we can't afford like anything. I mean, it was crazy. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen the way schools are in LA, like preschool. So I was just like, oh my God, we can't live like this. Greg is from LA. He's like, every place is like this. I'm like, I'm from Ohio. It is not like this. We can have other places.
Right.
So he just started looking for other gigs, and he ran into a friend of his who works for AJA, who is president of AJA, which is a digital video company in Vegas. And he's like, hey, you should come check out Northern California. So they just went. We got a job, and we just packed up the kids and went.
To Las Vegas, did you say?
No, we went up here. So they saw each other in Vegas at a convention.
Oh, okay. All right.
So, yeah.
And had you visited this in Nevada County before?
Greg was pretty sure he was going to take the job, and then he just said, go up and check it out and see what you think. And I was just like, what? This place is amazing. Especially because I was just like, I'm just going to have these kids, and we raise these kids, and I'm going to paint. And then that's when I started to get back, because then I finally had room and space. And I was like, because I started painting again after my head injury, because I was just like, I just can't. My therapist was like, just do something, like get out of bed and do something. And so I did that, and then it just started to like turn, you know, like a little art show here, a little thing there. And then I was like, okay, we're just gonna raise these kids. And I just started painting in earnest up here.
So I want to go back to that question. How did you feel like you changed by having children?
Oh my God. It's just like, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's not even, I'm not even the same. You know, I was definitely lost before. So it wasn't like I gave up stuff. It wasn't like I had like everything going on. But
you weren't giving up a career.
Not really. I mean, I was sort of floundering, you know. But it just, I mean, it is, having kids is so humbling. Nothing will humble you more than, you know, raising kids. You think you know, you don't know anything. You're like, oh my God. Yeah.
So let's talk about your artwork. What inspires the work that you do?
I guess maybe that would be the closest to sort of like meditation maybe that I do. Like, I don't really plan on what I'm going to paint. I just start and then I just keep painting until it's done. And I don't know what it's going to be. And a lot of times as I'm painting, it's like 2 hours while I'm painting, and it starts to, like, a narrative starts to emerge of what I'm supposed to do next. And then I have like that whole journey that I took. And then once it's done, it's like, then it's for somebody else. Like, then it's somebody else's little thing.
Now, you mentioned spirituality. Is there any themes that you feel like you're drawn to? I know you say you just kind of start and then it becomes what it is, but is there anything you're like, wow, I'm seeing a pattern or a theme?
I definitely see my Catholic upbringing in the iconography, just probably from sitting around in churches a lot, you know, staring at statues and things. And the kind of like that suffering saint narrative that you sort of see, like with the way their head is tilted, or their eyes are tilted, or I don't know, where their hands are. I definitely see that. Less of a spiritual thing, but more of probably just being immersed in church stuff for so long.
Right. Do you see yourself as a suffering saint?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so.
Is
No,
it
but I think it's
something that you would, because you did mention earlier, I mean, you didn't want to have that life of solitude and
yeah.
very specific things. Is there like an aspiration to like have that kind of quiet suffering artist?
No, it's weird. Like now that I'm older, I really cherish like my downtime and my alone time and my quiet time. Like before I wanted to be just in the middle of everything and, but now I feel like I'm in a good place now. Yeah. I feel like I don't feel I'm ready. I'm ready for whatever comes.
Now, before we get to whatever comes, I do have a question. Do you have a memory of, and it could be a celebrity, it could be somebody else,
Okay.
a moment of witnessing a very loving moment, empathetic moment?
My gosh.
Something maybe that surprised you?
In LA?
Could be anywhere.
Oh.
I know you've had a lot of exposure to celebrities, so I thought maybe there might be something there, but
Yeah,
also
no, they don't love anyone.
right.
I would have, I mean, honestly, Brian, the first thing that came to mind when you said that was that when you stood up at that public safety power shutoff meeting and you addressed the room, that I was like, he said some shit, man. That was something else. That rocked my world. I still remember that. I will always remember that. That was a huge inspiration for me. Just holding the way you could hold that room and you could hear a pin drop, and there were so many people there that were angry and frustrated and wanting to help or not knowing how to help, and you just held that space, and it was beautiful. It was.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I did not expect that. Well, thank you very much. I feel very honored. Thank you.
It's a
Wow.
trick.
Wow. Okay. That was a surprise to me. That was a surprise I wasn't expecting. Thank you. So where do you see yourself going from here?
Dude, I don't know.
I mean, do you feel like you want to get back in the movies at all, or do you feel like you want to do something?
I don't know. I mean, it's, doing the work that I'm doing now where, I have to communicate to people around emergency things or like homelessness or economic development or all of these things. It's kind of comforting, because one of the things that was a struggle for me in Hollywood was the way everybody would act like it's life and death. And now I actually get to use my writing and my communication skills, and it actually is life and death. And so then it feels like I can bring as much urgency, that appropriate urgency to it. And it's not about, Harvey stealing, getting his table, whatever. It's actually about people making it out alive. So
right.
In some weird way, it's an interesting way the puzzle pieces started to fit together. But I have an awareness that there's a burnout on that type of work that I haven't quite learned how to regulate yet.
Oh, there
so
is.
I need to figure that out. That's my little job for this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So, yeah. I mean, the one thing I do notice, from the work you do, I feel like what you're trying to do is unite the community. You're trying to get behind, moving forward as the community in a loving and compassionate way. And I think that permeates all the work you do. And it's very much appreciated.
I hope so. Thank you for saying that. because that is really, I really hope so. And I know people are just so on their last, I feel that. I feel how fragile everybody feels. And I just, some days I want to fall apart too, but my God, like we gotta get it together up here for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Did you see that article by Rachel Howard about that this would be like Nevada County would be like ground zero for like the beginning of an American, a Civil War 2.0?
No, what was that in?
I don't know. It was about, I mean, maybe it was about, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 months ago. I don't know, maybe something like that. But it was in the San Francisco Chronicle. I guess
I did see that. Oh, yeah. Yes.
Because I think she had an incident walking.
Yes.
On a road.
I read that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, we're really, it's a little sticky. I think people in Southern California don't, and even in the Bay Area, they don't understand how rough it can be up here. Like it's not, I don't know. Things are rough.
I mean, it is a microcosm of the macrocosm of the United States. You know what I mean? Because we really are divided. If you look at the census, like, Republicans and Democrats, it's pretty even.
Yeah.
So you're going to have a lot more conflict. And I think they're going to, because of the rural nature, it presents itself in kind of weird ways and things like that. So, but yeah, it is that. And there is a lot of divisiveness, and up here that's very kind of out in the open in some degree.
Yeah.
And also closed as well. But
yeah, I don't know which is scarier, but it's both those. This has gotten it's kind of a little ugly.
Yeah.
Uglier. Yeah.
Yeah. But so where do you find hope for the future? Like
I don't know. Some days it's just, you just got to have faith. Like some days it doesn't feel like there's any reason to hope, which is a terrible thing to say, but what other choice do we have? Right? Like, what other choice do we have? We just got to get up and get on with it. Right? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's a good place to depart. Get up and get on with it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much,
Sheila. Thank you so much for talking with me for so long. It was so nice. My God.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Is there anything you'd like to share? You have like a website, or do you want to share? I know Greg's got some kind of compilation.
He's got a super rad compilation. I will send you the links. Lotteria. I mean, It's like, I don't even know, like 14. No, I don't even know. And just amazing, like punk rock gods all coming together. And they all made these tracks from their home studios during COVID. And then they made it. Like, it's so cool. It was so cool listening to it.
That's a great idea.
It was. They just talk about love, to be married to a drummer and have him do a track in the house during COVID.
Yeah.
I am a nice one. I'm just kidding. It was great to hear music in the house, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's great to hear your voice, and thank you for being here and sharing what is alive within you. And
thank you for everything you do, Brian. You hold this community together in ways that I hope you know. Seriously, thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you as well. And all right, everybody, this was The Blind Man in Black. I'm your host, Brian Snyder. Once again, like, subscribe, rate. It's appreciated. And thank you so much, Sheila Cameron, for being here.
Thank you.
Deeply appreciate it. And I wish you a lovely evening. And we're going to have an awkward ending. Are you ready for the awkwardness?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, here we go.